Hello and good evening, friends, and welcome to another edition of Strictly Sports. I am your host, Anthony Florio, joined as always by good old MF Michael Fletcher. Awaiting the presence of Michael Bullock. I don't know if he'll join us or not. If he does, we'll catch him up on what he missed. If not, then we should have him back with us tomorrow night for the Cerebral Smack Talk. But for right now, Strictly Sports here and now, and let's get it started with the NHL trading deadline. The NHL trade deadline came and went. It was going to go one of two ways. Either the lack of sellers due to the league's tight playoff races was going to produce a snoozer, or the tight playoff races were going to produce a flurry of activity as teams load up for the stretch run. So what I am going to do, being the NHL analyst here, a la your Barry Melroses, your Bill Clements, what have you, I'm going to give you my winners and losers of this trade deadline. And I'm going to start with the winners. And my first winner, the Tampa Bay Lightning. Over the past 2 months, no team in the NHL has been hotter than the Lightning, who have posted 2 separate double-digit winning streaks, have lost just 4 games since Christmas, and have a whopping plus 41 goal differential. And they only got better over the past week and a half. Players with term were on trend this trade deadline season, and Tampa Bay picked up one of the league's most underrated in Blake Coleman. Rookie GM Julien BriseBois then schooled his peers by winning the sweepstakes for disgruntled former Buffalo defenseman Zach Bogosian at a bargain price of a prorated $1.3 million. Oh, and the Lightning added a decent defensive forward in Barclay Goodrow. Has this team finally learned to peak at the right time? I think so. One of my losers, the inactives. The Dallas Stars, Colorado Avalanche, Columbus Blue Jackets, Toronto Maple Leafs, and Nashville Predators are all jostling for position in their respective playoff races, and none of them did anything to make their team significantly better. The biggest surprise of the bunch was perhaps Colorado, which is banged up at forward and has ample salary cap space. The only thing GM Joe Sakic did was get goalie insurance in Michael Hutchinson and acquire Vladislav Nemesnikov, who likely profiles in the bottom 6. The Avalanche could have and perhaps should have done more in this season when they have a legitimate chance to win the Stanley Cup. The Dallas Stars were in on Joe Thornton but couldn't get it done. In fairness, the Blue Jackets made the 2019 trade deadline incredibly fun. But GM Jarmo Kekalainen didn't give his team much help to separate it from the Eastern Conference wildcard muck. And then there are the Maple Leafs, who lost to their own practice goalie / minor league Zamboni driver on Saturday. As Toronto GM Kyle Dubas said later in the day on Monday, I'm not going to come up and BS and say I have some magical solution. Clearly not. Another winner is putting it on your players. Some of this inactivity is directly tied to the idea of putting the pressure on the players to be the change they need. One could argue that's the case with the Maple Leafs. The Predators have been, it's on the players since they fired Peter Laviolette. While the Panthers made a hockey trade for Vincent Trocheck, it's also a clear message that the team expects more from its remaining core. Another loser was teams holding on to first-round picks. Parity leads to high prices, and 6 first-round draft picks moved around this year's trade deadline, up from 4 last season. In 2019, those firsts were traded for Kevin Hayes, Brandon Montour, and 2 from Matt Duchene. The second first-rounder was a conditional one that never came to pass after he didn't re-sign. Players who cost first-rounders this season, Jason Zucker, Blake Coleman, Andre Case, Jean-Gabriel Pageau, Brady Shea, and Barclay Goodrow. The winners, individuals, Patrick Marleau and Ilya Kovalchuk. Marleau and Kovalchuk have combined for 1,003 career goals, a total that would have been higher were it not for Kovalchuk's 5-year Russian stint, and a total of 0 Stanley Cups. In fact, Marleau has played the most regular season games in NHL history without winning one. Now the 40-year-old Marleau and 36-year-old Kovalchuk have as good a shot as they've ever had as key depth pieces for the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Washington Capitals, respectively. You heard that right. Patrick Marleau is riding Sidney Crosby's coattails, while Kovalchuk is playing sidekick to Alexander Ovechkin. And we are so here for it. Few would have predicted it this past summer, as Kovalchuk was coming off a disappointing return to the NHL via the Los Angeles Kings, and Marleau was bought out by the Carolina Hurricanes after a short stint with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Another loser was Joe Thornton's Stanley Cup quest. While Marleau and Kovalchuk will get their respective shots at their first Stanley Cup, Joe Thornton decided to stay put in San Jose. GM Doug Wilson would have granted his wish to leave if Thornton had made it, but the Stars center has shown little desire to leave the Bay Area during his sometimes tumultuous time there. So no full circle storybook ending with the Boston Bruins, and no reunion with little Joe Pavelski in Dallas, which were both rumored. Another one of my winners, Pierre Dorion. The Senators GM is often critiqued. Most of it is earned. The team is not competitive. Attendance is low. Fan base apathetic. Ottawa has now made 40 trades since the start of the 2017-18 season, including saying goodbye to Erik Karlsson, Mark Stone, and Matt Duchene, among many, many more. Monday, however, I think might have marked the GM's finest work. No player has yielded as much for doing as little as Jean-Gabriel Pageau. To earn a first and a second round pick and but potential chance for a third for a rental 20-year-old who has only now 20 goals for the first time in his career, thanks to an astronomically high 17.8 shooting percentage. Mr. Dorion, have yourself a day, kid. That's all there is to say on that. Undecided, Lou Lamoriello. I'm torn on him. On one hand, the Islander GM grossly overpaid to acquire Pageau, who could be just a flash in the pan thanks to that wild shooting percentage. But on the other hand, Lou Lamoriello addressed his biggest area of need. The Isles offense is ranked 22nd in the league and flamed out in last year's playoffs after scoring only 5 goals in 4 games. And Lamoriello salvaged the high price by signing Pageau to an extension, potentially shoring up the Islanders' center depth for the next few years. And then there was the Zach Parise ordeal. Lamoriello was deep in talks to acquire his former Devils forward, which could have been a big mistake, in my opinion, considering the 35-year-old is under contract through 2025. And according to Natural Stat Trick, Parise's 1.33 points per 60 minutes at 5-on-5 this season is the worst rate of his career. The good news, Lamoriello did not go through with it. A winner, Robin Lehner. Robin Lehner, a Vezina Trophy finalist a year ago, who just wants to be treated as such, was looking for a long-term deal and fair compensation. He was hoping it would come with the Chicago Blackhawks, who took a 1-year, $5 million flyer on him after the Islanders snubbed him for Semyon Varlamov this past summer. But contract talks between Lehner's agent and the Blackhawks stalled because of a disagreement on a term. The Blackhawks, despite a promising showing before the All-Star break, don't look like they're going anywhere this season. Sorry, Ward. Now Lehner gets a terrific opportunity to win the Cup this spring with the surging Vegas Golden Knights. Marc-Andre Fleury has been burdened by a big workload since coming to Vegas, and his save percentage this season is among the lowest of his career. And he's also working through personal tragedy as his father died this past fall. Lehner will get ample opportunities to start and potentially play a lot. And hopefully he can still get what he wants this summer. And speaking of the Chicago Blackhawks, I'm sorry, Matt Ward, but they're one of my losers. They were poised to pick up big returns as a seller at the deadline. Instead, they picked up a second-round pick, a third-round pick, a backup goalie, and a college defenseman who I don't even rank among the Golden Knights' top 10 prospects. If I'm a player on the Blackhawks, that does not make me feel good, especially since the 2 players traded were popular in the locker room. Erik Gustafsson should have been traded this past summer when his value was much higher. And Robin Lehner, reigning Vezina finalist, kept Chicago in many games earlier this season when everything else was falling apart. Since the return on Lehner was so low, it raises the question of why he was even traded at all. Couldn't the Blackhawks have just kept him? They still are technically in the playoff hunt, which would have set them up better for re-signing him to an extension. Another one of my winners, the Carolina Hurricanes. The day began with the Canes organizing a glitzy New York media tour for emergency backup hero David Ayers. They kept the good publicity and good karma going all day long. The Canes have been looking for defensive help ever since Dougie Hamilton went down, and it became more urgent with Brett Pesce's long-term injury. They got exactly what they needed, picking up top defensive rental Sami Vatanen and 25-year-old Brady Shea, the latter of whom is signed through 2024. What's more, they snagged Vincent Trocheck away from Florida. The bunch of jerks have momentum to break through the crowded Eastern Conference wildcard race. And Bill Guerin, the GM of the Minnesota Wild, he's one of my losers here. Now, the Wild did well for themselves in the Jason Zucker trade to Pittsburgh, getting a solid prospect in defenseman Kalen Addison, a conditional first-round pick, and the expiring contract of forward Alex Galchenyuk. But where's the slicing and dicing? That's where it ended for Bill Guerin. Mikko Koivu flexed his no-move clause to remain in Minnesota. Potential big deals for players like Matt Dumba and Jonas Brodin never materialized. And most notable was the rumored deal that would have sent Zach Parise in a contract that expires in 2025 to the Islanders. Multiple reports suggested that he waived his no-move clause to play for Lou Lamoriello, but nothing happened. Well, there's always the draft. Another one of my winners, the Boston Bruins. The Bruins' acquisition of Ducks winger Andres Case has the potential to be one of the best of the deadline. A talented 24-year-old winger with tremendous offensive upside if he remains healthy, which admittedly is a tall order given his struggles to stay in the lineup during his career. But he makes just $2.6 million through 2021, when the Bruins can re-sign him as a restricted free agent. They moved mid-range defensive prospect Axel Anderson in their first round of the Ducks for Case and Anaheim's willingness to take David Backes' contract, or at least 75% of it off their books. Boston's second trade with Anaheim, which sent Danton Heinen for Nick Ritchie, was less lopsided and a wash at best for the Bruins. And Devil GM Tom Fitzgerald, I'm another one of those torn ones. He had a strange deadline. Getting a 2021 second-round pick and defenseman David Quenneville from the Islanders for the expiring contract of Captain Andy Green was good. Getting a blue-chip prospect in Nolan Foote and a 2020 first-round pick for Blake Coleman was even better. Getting prospects Janne Kukkonen and Frederick Claesson, along with a fourth-round pick for a banged-up Sami Vatanen, was maybe not as good as what they got for Green. And the Wayne Simmons trade with the Buffalo Sabres, retaining salary for a conditional 2021 fifth rounder that can become a fourth rounder, is, well, maybe a favor for a former coworker with the Penguins, Jason Botterill. But the biggest question about the Devils is something that happened on Fitzgerald's predecessor's watch. Given the incredible prices that were paid at the February 24 deadline, did New Jersey make a big goof in trading Taylor Hall back in December? And this one is for me and MF here. A winner, Chris Kreider of our New York Rangers. He wanted to remain with the Rangers, but as Sunday's talks ended, the two sides were still separated by a year on his next contract. He was by far the most desirable forward at the trade deadline for a reason. Kreider is the kind of physical scoring forward whom contenders covet. The Rangers are close to being a contender. Had they cut ties with him, they would have searched for a Chris Kreider type for the next few years. So they bridged the gap and gave Kreider a seventh year at $6.5 million annually, slightly down from the $7 million annually over 6 seasons the Rangers wanted. But again, Kreider wanted to be a Ranger, and he will be for the foreseeable future. And MF and I, we could not be any more grateful about that. And that's it. That's those are my takeaways from it. And let me just tell you something. Look, watch out for the Rangers, because we are peaking. We are absolutely peaking at the right time. Don't believe us? Ask the Montreal Canadiens. They can tell you firsthand, because we whooped them tonight. 5-2.
5 points out of the second wild card spot, and we got plenty of games to go. I can't believe I was about to say this. I was apprehensive when the season started. I was very apprehensive. I did not know if we were going to make it or not. I can say it legitly now. We got a very good chance of sneaking in. We're right there. If we get in, the Ranger Roundup is back. So,
we haven't done that in 3 years.
No, we haven't. So
we haven't done that since 2017.
Yeah, so
when we beat Montreal in the first round, but then got dumped unceremoniously by Ottawa. But.
Yeah. So I mean, it's going to be a tough road
We're right
because
there.
there's some really good teams up there this year. But yeah. I mean, New
We're right.
York is there. They could make it.
Yeah, we're peaking at the right time, and we got about a month and a half to go. So that's all we can say about the Rangers. But those are my winners and losers of the trade deadline. I don't know how MF's going to go about it. If he has a winners and losers of his own, or if he just wants to throw some other things in there, doesn't matter to me. So that's what I put on my heart to do. So that's all I can say on that. So I'm going to give it to the Gary Thorne to my Bill Clement and the Doc to my Enzo. Good old MF Michael Fletcher. And MF, all I can say is what do you think of my analysis?
I think you did an incredible job, Anthony. Well done. That's what I was expecting. That I wasn't really gonna. I didn't expect anything less than what you just did. I think you made a lot of valid points. I think some of the trades that were there were amazing. And I thought you bridged the gap and told a very compelling story that I think a lot of the fans would greatly appreciate. I mean, what we saw in this trading deadline this year was a lot of moves, a lot of stuff that were happening. But at the end of the day, all these moves were necessary moves. All these moves that were being done are all for teams that's going to make a run for the Stanley Cup. So, I mean, I think when you think about everything that went down, and I was pumping out the stories all day. Anthony knows I threw a fistful of articles, reports that were coming out at that time, and there was a lot of them. From the Edmonton Oilers nabbing Mike Green. Mike Green, as many of you guys know, was a heart and soul player for the Detroit Red Wings during their time when they were making a big run for the Stanley Cup. Mike Green was a good core defenseman on the team. Patrick Marleau to Pittsburgh. What a move. I cannot believe Pittsburgh pulled that off. Patrick Marleau to the Penguins. How on earth do you respond to that move? I mean,
Crosby, Malkin, Marleau?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
That's a three-headed monster.
And I'm going to say this, if you're Washington right now, you're looking at Pittsburgh, you saw that move, and you probably were pushing the panic button immediately, saying, "Uh-oh, this is not good. We're in trouble now. We got to make a move." I gotta say that was a big one. Of course, Jean Gabriel Pageau going to the Islanders. You know what? And I'm glad he's gone from the Senators, because if you remember, there was a year when the Rangers were playing against the Senators, and I think it was the year that we got knocked out of the playoff, and it was Pageau that was making life miserable for the New York Rangers. Like every game, he was scoring a goal or two in the game. So to see him go to the Islanders, great move for them. They're fighting for their playoff lives right now. But in return, the Senators got a first-round pick from got the Islanders' first-round pick in the upcoming draft and next year's draft, a second rounder and a conditional third. I mean, you want to talk about a fleece. I got to give credit where credit's due to the Islanders. They played this one. You got to give credit where credit's due to the Senators. That was beautifully done. Well done, well constructed. I got nothing bad to say. That was a great move for them. Of course, Derek Grant going to the Philadelphia Flyers from the Anaheim Ducks. Nice move for them. Nothing too amazing. Of course, then they made another move. Nate Thompson getting Nate Thompson from the Canadiens for the 5th. Again, some solid moves there. Nothing I would say that would make anything go. Nick Ritchie to the Bruins was huge. That was a big one. And then Buffalo nabbing Wayne Simmons. The Buffalo Sabres nabbed Wayne Simmons. But now here's the question. A lot of people are wondering this. Is Wayne Simmons a rental? Or is he going to be there for the long term? If it's a rental, if Buffalo got him just for a rental, what's the meaning of that trade? Why do you trade an all-star caliber player when you're not even a threat to make the playoffs? I mean, Buffalo right now is near the bottom of the NHL right now, if memory serves me right. They're nowhere near playoff contention. Why would Philadelphia do that to make a move? Normally, in any other situation, you're like, oh, let's do this. Let Wayne Simmons go to a team that could play or could possibly fight for a Stanley Cup. That's what Simmons would want. Why would Wayne Simmons, if he had a no-trade clause and waived it, why would you go to Buffalo? Unless you got family or somebody's close to, or unless you're closer to home, closer to your family, okay, I get that. But Buffalo is not a good team. And they're not Stanley Cup contenders anytime soon. Wayne Simmons, you might have made a Goomba mistake over here, my friend. I don't like that trade at all. Of course, Robin Lehner's going to the Vegas Golden Knights. That's a big pickup for them. Nice little goalie depth that you can get, because now you're going to probably match him up with Marc-Andre Fleury. That's going to be a nice 1-2 punch. Plus, Anthony, like you said, Marc-Andre Fleury's been going through a lot this year. He's been very emotionally driven this year. So we'll see what happens there. Of course, Brandon Davidson traded to the San Jose Sharks. That was a nice little trade there. And then, of course, Nick Cousins going to the Vegas Golden Knights is again, Vegas is making the right moves at the right time. They're looking to try to make a run for the Stanley Cup, which is the right thing to do. And Vegas has been streaking lately. Anthony, you made it abundantly clear. They've been red hot lately. They're making a big threat here. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. And there's really nothing more to say. So we'll wait and see what happens. And yeah, Anthony, I got nothing more to say. You did an excellent job with the trading deadline. So let's just move right along.
It's what I do, man. It's what I do. And the efforts are only gonna get better going forward. So that's all I can say. Next up, to the NFL, Drew Brees announces he will return to the New Orleans Saints for the 2020 season. It's official. He will return to the Saints for this upcoming season. The future Hall of Fame quarterback made the announcement via his Instagram after weeks of mulling his NFL future, and this came about a week or so ago, 9 days or so ago. He said it very simply. My feelings about the 2020 season, I look forward to the grind and the journey, for the reward at the end will be worth it. Brees wrote, love you, #WhoDatNation. Let's make another run at it. MF, he's going to make another run for it, and quite frankly, I don't blame him, especially after the last 3 years have ended in utter heartbreak.
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of have to feel like this has to be the year. This is it. I don't think there's any other time. Plus, on top of that, there's rumors going around that they're grooming Taysom Hill as the heir apparent. So, I mean, a lot of questions were running about should Drew stay, should he go, this and that. To me, I think he deserves one more chance. He deserves an opportunity to try to win one more Super Bowl in my career. And I am a big fan of his, no doubt about it. What he's done for the city, what he's done for the team, he deserves one more chance, at least one more try. If he gets it, go out on top as a world champion. If he doesn't, he's already a Super Bowl winner. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I just feel like he deserves it. The team has been so good for the last 3 years that it's a crying shame that he has not made another Super Bowl. The last 3 years, the 3 teams he's had has been unbelievable, where they should have won and they've been dumped each time. One more painful than the other. So, I mean, there's really nothing more to say. Anthony Florio, I'm with you. Drew Brees deserves at least one more crack at the apple.
Absolutely he does. I mean, look at the last 3 years. First, you have to go back to you got to go back 2 years ago, January of 2018, the infamous Minneapolis Miracle in the divisional round against the Minnesota Vikings, 1 point lead, and then they let the unthinkable happen. Keenum found Diggs, rest was history, greatest call of Joe Buck's career. Amen to that. And then you thought it couldn't get any worse than that. Oh, it did. The most controversial no call, not just in NFL history, but maybe in sports history in general. The pass interference call that never was. The call that they should have called. If they had called that, it's very likely it would have been New Orleans in Super Bowl 53 against the Patriots and not the Rams. And if it had been the Patriots and the Saints, who knows? We could have ended up having an even better game than we got with the Patriots and the Rams. No doubt about it. And then this past season, they lose to Minnesota again in the wild card round, this time at home. So 3 years of playoff heartbreak, and he wants one last chance to get this team over the hump. And him coming back, all I know is this. It definitely opens the door, for them in the NFC. They're right there. But so is San Francisco. You got to watch out for them. You got to watch out for Seattle. Maybe the Rams, if they can get their act together. And I don't know what else, but he's coming off another strong year of production. He shows no signs of slowing down. While his 2,979 passing yards were not near some other years where he racked up more than 5,000 yards, it was mostly because he missed 5 games due to a thumb injury that required surgery to repair. But still, he went on to toss only 4 interceptions to his 27 touchdowns in 11 regular season games, making him again one of the most efficient and mistake-free quarterbacks in the NFL. His interception tally was also the lowest of any season in his illustrious career as a full-time starter, dating back to his rookie season of 2001 with the then San Diego Chargers. Having been clear, he wants to leave the NFL on his own terms. That time is not now, and the Saints organization now has continued stability through this year, at minimum, at the most important position on the field. The 41-year-old is positioned to get a new contract as well, and time will tell if it's of the 1 or 2 year variety. And with that, the Saints are reloaded to avenge not 1, not 2, but 3 consecutive seasons of having been dismissed from the playoffs in heartbreaking fashion, and 2 consecutive seasons of having been dismissed from the playoffs on controversial no calls. And while they work to get a new deal on Brees done to help mightily in those efforts, the decision by Brees will now force the hand of both Teddy Bridgewater and Taysom Hill, and especially the latter, having thrust himself into the limelight following recent comments surrounding his want of being a franchise quarterback. So, Bridgewater, unrestricted free agent, likely will not return to New Orleans as he looks to build upon his success as a starter in 2019, having went 5-0 in Brees' absence. And the former first-round pick also has skins on the wall from his time with Minnesota that will fuel his market value. And as for Taysom Hill, he's seen more as a gadget player. And also, unlike Bridgewater, is a restricted free agent this year. And it allows the Saints to place an RFA tender on the former undrafted free agent, as well as the right of first refusal on any offer sent his way, giving them full power to dictate if he stays or goes. And ideally, they'd like to give him one more year behind Brees before potentially handing him the wheel, assuming that would still be the plan in 2021. For Brees, a player with a first ballot Hall of Fame nod in his future and a list of NFL records already in tow, it's another chance at redemption, but also gives him the opportunity to do what's never been done before. His 77,416 passing yards are already the most in league history, but another season of play gives him a chance to break the 80,000-yard mark, an insane number that shows just how prolific of a career he's had. And if he can remain healthy for the full slate of games this year, and considering his chemistry with record-setting wide receiver Michael Thomas, it is difficult to fathom Brees falling short of that coveted bar this coming season. After all, folks, this is Drew Brees we're talking about. See record, own record, find new record, rinse and repeat. So that's the story. So we're all for it. We're rooting for this team. They're a fun team to watch. And they are, and with him coming back and considering all that phenomenal talent, especially on the offensive side of the ball, the New Orleans Saints, without a doubt, are one of my favorites, if not the favorite, in the NFC. Right now, I consider it a two-team race between them and San Fran as of right now. But get back to us in about 6 months or so, and then we'll get back to you. So that's all I can say on that. So that's great to hear. So now we're going to move on to the other big news in the NFL. Greg Olsen has a new team. He's no longer in Carolina. Oh, no. He is now going to the Seattle Seahawks. And this was about a week ago as well. And yes, as of right, and yes, as you all know, as of right now, he is working alongside of Kevin Burkhardt for the XFL and doing a good job. And we'll get into the XFL as part of our big double main event in just a little bit. His TV career is back on hold, and he signed a 1-year, reported $7 million deal, including $5.5 million of that guaranteed. And after parting ways with Carolina, Olsen later disputed the team, characterizing it as a mutual agreement. The 34-year-old also visited with the Buffalo Bills and the Washington Redskins before ultimately landing in Seattle. With the Seahawks, he'll be paired up with Russell Wilson, who should help increase Olsen's 59 career touchdowns. If the often injured New Jersey native can stay healthy, he has missed 18 games over the last 3 seasons. Olsen, a veteran of 13 seasons, has also found success in the broadcast booth, trying his hand at analysis for NFL and XFL games, and is expected to be a hot commodity when he finally calls it a career. It's a career transition that will have to wait until at least 2021. But all in all, I like the move of this. I like this move with Olsen going to Seattle, especially with the body of work of Russell Wilson. I think he could have one of his best statistical years, maybe ever. So that's all I can say on that. This is a good move for Seattle. So I'm not going to get too much into it. So MF, Greg Olsen going to Seattle. But before he does that, he's wrapping up he'll be with the XFL with Kevin Burkhardt.
Yeah, and I agree. I think this is going to be a great move for him. To be, he's a good tight end. He's one of the top tight ends in all of the NFL. And the one thing that you would be concerned about would be injuries. That's the one thing I would be a little worried about as well. But they play good. They play great. There's really nothing more to say. And props to Seattle for making the move. They needed a good tight end. I think we all can agree. Jimmy Graham just hasn't really panned out in Seattle. He's not the Jimmy Graham of the New Orleans Saints era, and it just hasn't worked out. So to bring in Greg Olsen now, who, if he becomes the Greg Olsen of old, this guy's going to be a beast. He's a monster. So, I mean, we'll have to wait and see. And plus, with great guys like, with DK Metcalf, with that running attack, with Russell Wilson leading the charge, you add yet another weapon to that arsenal. That that's like boys with their toys, man. They're gonna have a lot of fun with that. So nothing more to say, Anthony. Let's move on. Next topic.
And now we're gonna get into a very special double main event, and this first one revolves around good old MF Michael Fletcher. You're not gonna really get much out of me on this one because I'm not a boxing guy, unlike him. But MF added another chapter to his legendary boxing career. He is the voice of our boxing coverage, after all. It went down last Saturday night, the MGM Grand Garden Arena, Las Vegas, Nevada. The most anticipated rematch, maybe in boxing history. Heavyweight championship on the line. Champion Deontay Wilder defending against the Gypsy King Tyson Fury, the lineal heavyweight champion. When all was said and done, the winner of the bout and new heavyweight champion of the world, Tyson Fury, wins it by TKO in the 7th round. There's nothing more to say, MF. I mean, you had the call. Great call, by the way, as usual.
Thank you.
Yep, you killed it. I mean, you always do. And so I know you went up to the Buffalo Wild Wings. I know the place had to be packed.
Oh yeah.
And did Bullock join you?
No, he did not. Unfortunately, he did not. I was with Adam Mitchell and William Montero. Guys, that's William Montero is a former boxer himself, so he's my right hand man. He's my Lennox Lewis. So call me Joe Tessitore, whatever. He's my boxing expert on that one. And yeah, we saw it. We saw it with all our eyes. The domination by Tyson Fury. A lot of people didn't know how this was going to come out. And I'm going to say it. Tyson Fury, without a doubt, had a magical night. It was a performance that I don't think none of us expected it. Very few thought it was going to go down the way it did because of the fact that Deontay Wilder has such power in his punches that once he lays one on you, you're basically goner. You're donezo. But Tyson Fury just systematically dissected Deontay Wilder. Wilder just couldn't get off the mat on this one. Basically, he came in at 231, which was the heaviest he's ever been for a heavyweight championship fight. Tyson Fury was at 273, which is the 3rd heaviest he's ever been. And really what he did was he utilized the jab early on. And what he did was he was wearing down Deontay Wilder. In the 2nd round, he got him with a shot. Now, a lot of people were complaining that maybe it was behind the ear, behind the head, which is in boxing, that's an illegal punch. You cannot hit somebody in the back of the head. But it looked like it was on the ear. He rocked Wilder, and Wilder went down. And if you looked at that point, he literally went spaghetti legs. He was definitely not feeling it. He was definitely in bad shape at that point. And he never really recovered. Tyson Fury just dissected him, hitting him with body shots, hitting him with some clean punches in the face. And Wilder just was, he looked like a shell of himself. This was not the Deontay Wilder that we've seen in the past. He absolutely just did not have it on that night. They kept dissecting him, breaking him down, hard, devastating punches he was hitting him with. And then the second knockdown was a stunner, a body shot. Basically, Wilder just got caught with a body shot. Down he went again. Second time in the fight, he went down. And then once it got to the 7th round, it was almost academic. Pinned him up against the corner, started hitting him with a couple of punches. One punch, you saw his head just snap back, and it was a devastating punch. The corner of DeAndre Wilder is like, I've seen enough. Throws the towel in the ring. We didn't know at first that the towel got thrown in, but Kenny Bayless ran into the ring, called a halt to the bout. We were like, wait a minute, what happened? What happened? Why was the fight stopped? Sure enough, the towel was in the center of the ring right before our very eyes. We said, all right, fight's over. And the Gypsy King, Tyson Fury, wins, successfully defends his Lineal and Ring magazine, and now has captured the holy grail of all boxing, the WBC Heavyweight Championship of the World, the belt of all belts you want to have in your possession, the WBC Heavyweight title. This was the belt that Ali had, that Foreman has, that Sonny Liston had, Rocky Marciano, Joe Louis. This is the belt of every single title in boxing. This is the belt that makes you the true heavyweight champion of the world. In the eyes of many people in boxing, there's only 2 belts that you need to have in order to be considered a heavyweight champion. That's the WBC heavyweight title and the WBA heavyweight champion. IBF and WBO, they're more later in life, but a lot of people really kind of hold their noses when it comes to those belts. That's really the boxing monopoly. That's because of the greed in boxing, the millions of dollars, and you hear the rumors about the paper champions. All right, fine, whatever. But when it comes down to it, the 2 belts that you need to have in order to be considered the heavyweight champion of the world is WBA and WBC. The WBC heavyweight champion is now Tyson Fury. The WBA heavyweight champion is Anthony Joshua. And yes, Anthony, I've been hearing rumors about it. Immediately after this fight was over, the talk was, okay, what should Tyson Fury do? Should he do a trilogy, a 3rd fight with DeAndre Wilder? I don't think a lot of people will want to see that. Or do you go and try to unify all the belts and have, which will only happen for only the 3rd time in boxing history, an undisputed heavyweight champion of the world? Mike Tyson was the first man to unify all the belts at the exact same time. The second was Lennox Lewis. Since that day, we have not had I think Vladimir Klitschko was the 3rd. Klitschko was the last undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. If Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury do fight sometime down the line, either next year or whenever, they would become the 4th man ever to be considered in the eyes of boxing analysts as the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. And let me tell you, you thought that the excitement for Fury versus Wilder was crazy. Imagine what Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury would be in Wembley Stadium in London, because something tells me this fight is not going to be in the United States, which is fine. I don't mind going over to the UK to do a mega fight like this. I would be honored to do it. So yeah, there you go, Anthony. That's your fighting analysis. Let's go on to our main event.
I'm very curious. How did that final call go when they waived it?
Well, I was saying that Fury's continuing the onslaught, and then once we saw, I was like, wait a minute, Kenny Bayless is called. Wait, he stopped the fight, and then that's when Montero, my buddy's like, because Wilder's corner has just thrown in the towel. And then I was like, oh my goodness, Tyson Fury is now the heavyweight champion of the world. He TKOs Deontay Wilder in round 7.
That's good. That's good. And it's and by the way, it's Deontay Wilder.
Yep.
That's how you said DeAndre, but
yeah.
Anyways, let's get into the other half of our double main event, which is always our main event here for the time being, which is week number 4 of the XFL. There were not too many surprises in week 3 of the XFL, but there was one big one. And I know I can't see him, but I know good old MF Michael Fletcher's got his vintage Randy Orton Cheshire Cat grin on his face because it was his team, the winless LA Wildcats, taking down the undefeated DC Defenders. And I'll channel my inner Gorilla Monsoon on this one, and did so in grand style. LA won 39-9 and forced potential MVP Cardale Jones into 4 interceptions. Jones was eventually benched in the game for backup Tyree Jackson. And that shocking upset, definitely the upset of the year. So only one undefeated team left in the XFL, the Houston Roughnecks. 3 2-1 teams in St. Louis, DC, and Dallas. 3 1-2 teams in New York, LA, and Seattle. And 1 winless team at 0-3, and that's Tampa Bay. So now let's get to week number 4. And we started off with a Buddy Bowl. MF's LA Wildcats squaring off against my New York Guardians. This will be at 2 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday from MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey on ABC with Steve Levy, Greg McElroy, Tom Luginbill, and the beautiful Diana Rossini. And this is a matchup between 2 1-2 teams going in 2 different directions. The Wildcats are coming off of an impressive win over the Defenders after a pair of ugly losses to start the year. Meanwhile, my New York Guardians looked great in week 1, holding Tampa Bay to just 3 points before getting shut out in week 2 by DC and just 9 points last week against St. Louis. New York is struggling to find a rhythm on offense, going with 3 different quarterbacks in week 3. Matt McGloin, Marquise Williams, and Luis Perez. Despite playing the fewest snaps, Perez looked the best, finishing 4 out of 5 for 39 yards and a touchdown and no turnovers. New York still has a decent defense, allowing the second fewest touchdowns in the league at 6. But the offense needs to step up if the Guardians have any chance of winning this week. The Wildcats looked great last week as quarterback Josh Johnson finally appeared fully healthy. Johnson completed 18 of 25 passes for 278 yards and 3 touchdowns. The defense also shined, especially cornerback Mike Stevens, who finished with 2 interceptions, 2 pass deflections, and a sack. If LA's defense can step up again like it did last week, then the offense can hold its own. Of course, I want my team to win, obviously. But considering how god-awful my team has been as of late, considering that MF's team is trending in the right direction, I'm actually going to go with LA to steal one at MetLife. Wouldn't surprise me. But I think New York will keep it close, though. I'm going to say 22-17. LA beats New York from a professional standpoint, but personally, I want New York to win. Because if New York goes to 1-3 in a 10-game season, that's trouble. But if we can win this one, get it to 2-2, we might have a chance. So in the East, it's a 2-team race. It's between DC and St. Louis. Those are the 2 teams in the East. New York's right there. They just got to get something going on offense. Defense is good, but we need an offense. Same with Tampa Bay. So nothing more to say. LA wins 22-17, but go Guardians. We're going to be on duty. So that's all there is to say on that. MF, your LA Wildcats, man. Oh boy, did they show up against one of the championship favorites. Wow.
And we needed that. And like you said, we needed that game. We needed it pretty badly. 10-week season, the margin of error is basically slim to none. You can't afford any devastating losses like that, like what we had earlier in the year. Now it looks like our teams finally got the rhythm together. Hopefully this is a sign of good things. Going up against the New York Guardians, where, like you said, Anthony, offensively they've been sputtering. They're awful. There's no doubt about it. Defensively, they're they're a tougher team. So don't expect this to be a big blowout or anything like this. This is going to be probably a low scoring matchup because LA, hopefully this is the moment where they did turn it around and maybe this is signs of things to come. Hopefully. But if it is, then I like LA to do it again. So we'll wait and see what happens. I got the LA Wildcats getting the job done and winning this game. But like you said, this is probably going to be closer than what the experts have it. And we're just going to have to wait and see. So nothing more to say. Anthony, it's yours. I got LA as well.
Fair enough. And we move on to the second game of the Saturday slate, which will kick off at 5 p.m. Eastern over on Fox. It'll feature the Seattle Dragons squaring off against the St. Louis Battlehawks from the Edward Jones Dome in St. Louis, Missouri, exclusively on Fox. St. Louis opening up as a 12-point favorite in this game. Kurt Menefee alongside Joel Klatt and Brock Huard, they will have it. St. Louis opening up as a 12-point favorite. MF, like I said, I thought DC was going to maybe run away with the East, but oh no, they got another guest coming, and it's the St. Louis Battlehawks. Watch them.
And especially when they're at home, man, oh my God. Did you see that game in that venue, in that stadium? That was electric. I've never seen anything like that. That was awesome. St. Louis fans love their football, and it's apparent. They are definitely ready. I got St. Louis winning this game, and I don't think there's really much of a debate here. I mean, St. Louis looked really good last week. They really made themselves right at home. So I'm going to go with St. Louis again. So I'm going to go with St. Louis to win. Anthony, it's yours.
All right. And we move on to the Sunday. Well, actually, we got to get into my thoughts here. I agree, MF. I mean, St. Louis. I mean, Seattle entered halftime last week with a 12-6 lead, but were outscored 18-0 in the second half. Surprisingly, Seattle has stuck with quarterback Brandon Silvers, despite the fact he is completing only 53% of his passes, while averaging 170 yards a game. He has a 6-4 touchdown-interception ratio on the season, including at least one interception in every game. Seattle's backup B.J. Daniels could energize the offense with his mobility. Meanwhile, the Battlehawks have looked like one of the best teams in the XFL. Their only loss this season came to the undefeated Houston Roughnecks, but even that was a close game. St. Louis relies on a heavy rushing attack involving Matt Jones, Kristen Michael, and quarterback Jordan Ta'amu. Jones leads the XFL in rushing with 224 yards through 3 games. I don't expect this to be a close one. Seattle has struggled in every game this season, while St. Louis has looked strong in every game. The fact this game is in St. Louis makes me even more confident in this, so I'm going with St. Louis. Lock of the week, 32-18, St. Louis over Seattle. Now we move on to the Sunday slate of games, and we're going to start with, without question, for me, the game of week 4 right here. 4 p.m. Eastern, over on Fox Sports 1. It's going to be the Houston Roughnecks squaring off against the Dallas Renegades, Globe Life Park, formerly the ballpark in Arlington, Texas, the old home of the Texas Rangers. Houston is only a 1-point favorite.
Oof.
That's it. Kevin Burkhardt, Greg Olson, the All-American girl Jenny Taft, they'll be there. This is the game of the week in the XFL. Maybe I could even go as far as to say this could be a preview of the Western Conference Championship game come April 19th. It's the game of the week in the XFL. The 3-0 Roughnecks have been dominant on offense this season, with quarterback and my early favorite for MVP, PJ Walker, leading the league in passing yards at 748, passing touchdowns 10. Walker has even been a solid runner with 87 yards and a score on the ground. He has also found a reliable target in Cam Phillips, who leads the XFL in receiving yards, 324, and touchdowns with 7. The Renegades started the season with a loss, but that was without quarterback Landry Jones. Since returning from injury, Jones threw for 305 yards and 274 yards in weeks 2 and 3, respectively. He needs to work on ball control, though, as he has thrown 4 interceptions in his 2 starts. Running back Cameron Artis-Payne has helped steady the Renegades' offense with 185 yards, second most in the XFL. But with as much talk as these 2 high-profile quarterbacks are getting, this game will come down to defense. The Roughnecks lead the league in touchdowns scored 13, but also lead the league in touchdowns allowed 9. The Renegades are second in the league in fewest touchdowns allowed 6. However, expect this to be a high-scoring game, which is why it has the largest over-under this week at 50.5. This is a genuinely tough game to predict, but there's something magical about the Roughnecks. If Jones continues to turn the ball over like he has so far this season, then I expect Houston to come away on top and steal one at the ballpark in Arlington. So I'm going with the Houston Roughnecks to win this game. My final score, 32-28. Houston just barely gets by Dallas. But MF, I mean, last week we witnessed so far the best game of the XFL season with Houston and Tampa Bay in a 5-star classic full of Shakespearean drama. I expect nothing less when it comes to Houston and Dallas on Sunday.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I totally agree with that as well. I got the Houston Roughnecks winning as well. I think it's going to be a great matchup. No doubt about it. It's going to be a great game. I really got nothing else to add there. You kind of did everything for me there, Anthony. So we got one more game to go. Let's get into it.
Yes, indeed. And it will kick off at 7 p.m. Eastern. And this game is going to be over on ESPN2. Yeah, ESPN2 has this one. Our final game of the week, the DC Defenders squaring off against the Tampa Bay Vipers from the home of WrestleMania 36, Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida. Over on ESPN2, Tom Hart, Joey Galloway, Cole Kubelik, Molly McGrath, they will have it. DC, believe it or not, opening up as only a 1-point favorite, and rightfully so, MF, because last week, Tampa Bay, oh my goodness, they gave Houston a major run for their money.
Yeah, they gave them fits, and we almost had an upset. We almost had another upset. And of course, DC coming off a horrific performance, an absolute disaster of a night. But we're going to have to wait and see what happens here. So, but I think DC's going to turn it around. I think that was just a bad night. I just think that it was just a bad performance. And, you know, sometimes you got that. You could have great nights, and then there's nights where, you know, it doesn't necessarily pan out. So I think it was just a bad night for DC. So I think DC will turn it around, and I think they'll win this game over Tampa. But Tampa is going to give them a lot of fits. I think it's going to be one of those, another 5-star coming down to the wire excitement. But I just feel like DC is just going to have just enough to get by and win this game. So I really got nothing more to add, Anthony. It's yours.
This game would have been easy to predict a couple of weeks ago. But the Defenders' performance last week has shaken up my beliefs on this team. it's not just that they lost to MF's Wildcats, it's how they lost. Cardale Jones looked terrible against a defense that was worse than the league heading into the game. He finished 13 of 26 for 103 yards, no TDs, and 4 interceptions. The defense looked awful as well, giving up 39 points, the most scored in a single game by any team this season. The Vipers also surprised people last week by giving the undefeated Roughnecks a close game. Third-string quarterback Taylor Cornelius looked good in some spots, scoring 2 touchdowns, but poor in others. 52% completion, 1 interception. Fans hoping to see more of Quentin Flowers started chanting his name. Even Houston players and their coach June Jones were surprised Flowers didn't play more. Flowers hasn't really had a chance to showcase his talents as he keeps being thrown in and out of games. Coach Mark Trestman relied more on Aaron Murray in week 1 and Cornelius in weeks 2 and 3. It will be interesting to see if Coach Trestman caves into the fan favorite Flowers on Sunday. Very tough game to predict after last week's events. I do have a good feeling Tampa Bay turning things around. I mean, I want to go for the upset here. I want to say Tampa Bay, especially after they pushed Houston. But I got to go with DC. But if Tampa wins, I would not be surprised at all. But it's going to be a lot closer, though. 24-22. I'm going to go with DC to edge out Tampa Bay. And with that will put the bow on this edition of Strictly Sports. We want to thank you all so very much for tuning in as always. MF, we thought Wednesday Night Mayhem last night was loaded. Wait till you see what MF has in store for you tomorrow night on Cerebral Smack Talk. MF, hit us.
Yeah, first off, we're gonna lead it off with we got SmackDown Live. So we got SmackDown Live. We're gonna hit you with that first. Then we're gonna recap what went down at the Super Showdown earlier today. Actually, what we should do is do Super Showdown first, then do SmackDown Live. And then after that, we're going to preview AEW Revolution that goes down on Saturday. So, yeah, we got 3 topics, 3 things, 10:30 Eastern. Oh, my God, it's going to be a wild show. That's all I'm going to say. So 10:30 Eastern, recap of Super Showdown. We're going to have the recap of SmackDown Live and the preview of AEW, all going down tomorrow, 10:30 Eastern. Anthony, it's yours.
Man, oh man, that's going to be something.
Oh, yeah.
So, history was made. History was made not once but twice.
Yes, it was.
Super Showdown. And both were on the SmackDown side. So maybe a sense of direction for the blue brand. We'll see. Maybe it was definitely a banner day for SmackDown. That's all there is to say on that from what I read. So that's all I can say on that. We'll get into that tomorrow night at 10:30 and then we'll go from there. Ridiculously Raw, Wednesday Night Mayhem, in which we'll do AEW, NXT, and I believe we'll also be reviewing Revolution as well, MF?
We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. We don't know.
Fair enough. All right. So that'll put the bow on this. So until tomorrow night at 10:30 over on MF's channel, Brace Fan 95 for the Cerebral Smack Talk. It's Anthony Florio here for good old MF Michael Fletcher, and in spirit, Michael Bullock, Edie Woodson, and always and forever, Derek Ferreira. You know the routine, everybody. Thumbs up. Talk to you later. Yeah, throw it up, watching 4 style. Bye for now, my friends. God bless. Be good to each other. Have a blessed Friday. And until tomorrow night for the Cerebral Smack Talk, you've been watching Strictly Sports right here on the Zone 25 on YouTube and StreamYard.com. For everybody who's been a part of this one, for now, Anthony Florio, so long. Bye, everybody. Bye.